I have decided something. What have you decided? I have decided
that
When we're born, we have a mommy and daddy, right? And then when we grow up and get married, we have children of our own. And then our children grow up and get married and have children. And so on and so on. So it's very important and very fun also to
Hey everybody, it's Miranda. Good to see you. You're listening to Interesting Sex Podcast, a podcast about who, how, where, and why we fuck. I'm stoked today because my guest Keith is the head of a polyamory organization. So I'm able to really ask him a lot of questions about being poly and relationships, but then also he's a part of a BDSM club. So what a perfect combo for me to get to talk to him about everything. And I have to say, even though I already knew those things about him, he surprised me with a lot of new information. So I hope you're ready for some new information because you're about to get it, kids. Okay, so let's just go ahead and go. Let's open our ears, our hearts, and our holes and give a nice warm welcome for Keith. Oh, and don't forget, please subscribe to us and rate and review. Thanks so much.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, Keith. This is Miranda. How are you doing today?
Not bad. How about you?
I'm doing well. It's been a busy day over here working on life stuff, you know? How about yours?
I've just started a new job, and that's been interesting. But other than that, a pretty uneventful day.
That's cool. What kind of work are you doing right now?
I work for a bank doing bankruptcy work. It's very boring.
Yeah, that sounds sad.
I mean, not really, because it's people trying to get their life back on track, and so the bank is working alongside them.
Okay, so positive changes.
Yeah.
Good, okay. So tell me about yourself. Like, who are you as a human? How do you identify sexually? Who is Keith?
Sure. So I am a straight male. I identify as a dominant, and I am polyamorous.
Cool. Are you right now in multiple relationships?
Yes, I have 3 partners.
Okay. And you're straight, so all your partners are female?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me just a little bit about the dynamic of your relationships?
Sure. I have one partner who I live with and, spend most of my time with. I have one partner who lives in town and is a nursing student. And I have one partner who just recently moved to Arizona trying to get her PhD in astrobiology.
Are you attracted to intelligence? Are you sapiosexual?
I mean, I don't self-identify as that, but I certainly don't find myself in relationships with people who I can't connect with on an intellectual level. But I think that everybody has something that they're smart about.
I think that's a very kind thing of you to say. I don't think you lived in Los Angeles like I did.
No.
Which of your partners do you like the most?
I don't really think about it that way.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I've definitely been with my partner who's out in Arizona the longest.
Okay. And how does your relationship with her now that she's gone?
Her and I have weekly Skype dates. And other than that, I'm going to get to see her during holidays.
Do your other girlfriends get the boot at the holidays so you can see the other one? Or how does holidays work with you guys?
No. So we do a style of polyamory that we call kitchen table poly. We like to harbor relationships that allow us to be able to have everybody meet together and have dinners and spend time with each other. Most of my partners talk to each other on a fairly regular basis and consider each other at least friends. The 2 partners that are in the city in which I live now, they are in a relationship as well. So we have a pretty close-knit family unit almost among my partners and their partners.
Okay, so the 2 girls that live here now are bisexual. They're dating each other, but they're also dating other people as well?
I know one of them identifies as bisexual. The other one identifies as queer.
Okay. Is kitchen table poly, you said it's your term. Is that something that you guys just use as a unit, or is that an actual term?
So that's a term that I've heard thrown around, at least in the polyamorous communities along the Mid-Atlantic. I've seen other people use that as well. And I do lead a fairly large group of polyamorous people, like that is education focused as well as socially focused, that people will use that terminology as well. It's something that I've seen elsewhere.
I think it's a really adorable term. Is that a good thing to say? Adorable poly?
I mean, that's fine.
So you lead in a polyamorous organization?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have a group that is focused on people in the BDSM community who are also polyamorous, or people who are polyamorous who don't care about talking about sexual topics, who don't mind that it's being talked about, I guess I should say.
So is BDSM play a very large part in the poly community, or it just happens to be that you're involved in both of them?
So that's how it started. And in my experience, people who are open to one type of non-traditional lifestyle are usually more likely to be parts of other non-traditional lifestyles than the general public. It partially comes with the territory of maybe you have and are very honest about what kinks you are into and wanting to not limit your dating options as much. And another part of it is if you don't really care that you're not following the social default, then you're less likely to care in different aspects of your life. So if you don't care that you're kinky and that you're willing to be open and honest with that enough to at least come out to community events, then you're much more likely to be okay with the fact of like self-identifying as polyamorous.
Okay, and what does polyamorous mean to you or to your community?
So my definition of polyamory is the belief that you can have multiple loving relationships as long as everybody knows and everybody consents.
Okay. How long have you been identifying this way?
Close to a decade now, and I was doing it slightly longer than I knew there was a word for it.
Okay. You mentioned that you are a dominant male?
Yes.
Okay, so how does that look in your sex life? Like, what kind of dom are you? Is that a question?
Yeah. So I tend to be a nurturing dominant, but I'm not in any dominant submissive relationships at the moment. The vast majority of my 20s and a little after that, I was largely in dominant submissive relationships with at least one of my partners at any given time, or had relationships with friends that were oriented around similar aspects. It's something that if I really click with somebody and it's a relationship dynamic that works, that I really value, but isn't something that I solely focus on. One of the people I'm dating identifies as a dominant as well, and her and I have no problems with that. Her and I both don't want to dom the other one. We're happy to be in the relationship that we're in, just a regular kinky couple.
And so when you dom someone, what do you do?
I consider myself a lifestyle dominant. I enjoy taking someone under my wing and helping provide them direction and guidance. I enjoy the caretaking aspect of it and receiving service that someone is willing to provide to me. And that can be in the form of sexual submission, domestic submission, or service. And no, that's pretty much it. Just the domestic or sexual aspect. And my relationships have traditionally encompassed both of those elements.
So you're like a lifestyle coach, and instead of payment, you take sex and chores?
Yeah. And I think chores is a little bit of a flippant word for it, because it is something that I really value and don't really fully see as only chores.
What kind of things do you help your submissives with?
I've provided frameworks in order to help them achieve goals. My partner that's out in Arizona right now, she and I had a long-term dominant submissive relationship before she moved out of the area in which I live for school. And part of that process was figuring out what she wanted to do in life and what was going to be rewarding for her. And I've been extremely proud of her like bar none. Very, very, very proud of her for what she's been able to accomplish.
Yeah, but I'm curious about how you are dominant with them on a day-to-day basis that helps get them to that point. That's different than just a boyfriend supporting decisions. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, so it was in a more direct and careful, thought-out process. So her and I would have weekly check-ins where she would update me on what she had been doing during the week, and I would provide her tasks to complete that were effectively required to be completed. And if they weren't completed, it was, expected to have some sort of reasoning behind it, and that we would be able to have a dialogue about that. During those check-ins, I'd also be making sure that she was keeping up with her own personal health and well-being, because she was someone that was a workaholic and somebody that really enjoyed taking care of people, and that sometimes manifested itself through unhealthy behaviors that I was helping her work through.
In those meetings that you have weekly, is she dressed regularly or is she dressed like a submissive?
So during the majority of her day, and with a few exceptions, she wore my collar. And so that was a signifier in most areas of her life that there was somebody there keeping mind over her, and somebody that was important to her, that was helping direct her life, helping her achieve what she achieved. And I would like to focus on the fact that it wasn't wholly my doing. Like, she was an awesome person who was able to do those things. But I'm not sure how else to really describe it. It's something that is more ephemeral and hard to really pin down because it was a long-term process. Any given day, things changed and we were able to work on things together.
The girl that you live with, is she the one that's also dominant, or is it the nurse that's also dominant?
It's the nurse, the nursing student.
Okay, so the nurse is dominant and you guys have just like regular sex?
I mean, I think based on what people would consider normal, I consider pretty much all sex normal. I'm not someone who strongly believes or advocates that there's some sort of hierarchy of kinkiness. I think that everyone, whether they're willing to admit it or not, is at least a little bit kinky. Because if all you have and all you want to have is missionary sex, you have a fetish for missionary sex.
That's a good point.
And I've never really gotten in some places, BDSM communities trying to seem really hardcore and extreme, and like nobody else does what we do, because I think there are plenty of people that do many of the things that I do. There are several things, like the types of bondage that I've done in the past and the fire play and knife play that I do, very rarely happen outside of like a BDSM community member doing them, because they're kind of dangerous without proper training. But I know that human sexual drive is really strong, and if something really gets you off, people are going to find ways to do it, whether it's good for you or not.
Yeah, like people that kill themselves because they're asphyxiating while they masturbate.
Yeah.
And then they die.
Yeah. Autoerotic asphyxiation is dangerous.
Yeah. Do you like that?
No.
So you said knife play. What is knife play?
So knife play is a type of BDSM utilizing a blade of some type to provide some sort of sensory experience or pain or fear or a combination of those three. I enjoy making people scared consensually. I do want to make that very clear, that it's something that really loses interest for me if I know the other person isn't into it.
But like they're into it, but they are also into it knowing that they're going to be scared, but
Yes.
They trust that you're not going to kill them.
Yes, there is a lot of BDSM that is based around trust and trust in your partner.
Can you tell me, like, we're hanging out and then you tie me up and then you get a knife and then you pretend like you're going to kill me? Like, can you explain, like, if you were going to do knife play with somebody, like, kind of describe a scene of what would make sense?
Sure. So after good, thorough negotiation with a partner, if I haven't played with them before, then I would be using a knife. Usually I have it holstered onto my hip, and I have like a fairly large knife, and I have a pocket knife.
Are you wearing
that's like
chaps without underwear?
No, no. I tend to wear jeans and shirtless, or jeans and a button-up shirt. I'm not a super fancy guy. Largely, it's just jeans and a shirt.
Okay.
And I would push someone up against a wall usually, because that's a good way to make sure that they don't move involuntarily too much, or have them laying on a bed and use the
I want
threat
like
of the
phrases
knife.
too. Like, what would you say?
It would depend on the scene.
Okay.
Scenes for me are very organic, and I don't plan a whole lot out.
Right.
I do thoroughly negotiate to make sure I understand what the limits are and what kind of bounds I'm playing in between.
Okay.
I would typically tell somebody, to stay still, to not move. Depending on the person, I might threaten that I was going to harm them. Because sometimes I just want to use it for a sensory tool. Sometimes I want to use it as a implementation to use in order to intimidate somebody. Or I want to use it as something that's going to poke and hurt them, or maybe scratch them. Or I don't usually do a whole lot of blood play. So I don't do a whole lot of cutting of people, but I have.
More like pressing the knife on their skin.
Yes. Yeah. They're strategically dulled to the point where they're not at risk of easily cutting through without a whole lot of pressure, but sharp enough where they feel very sharp. And most of the knives I use are still, while using them, dangerously sharp and are handled with a lot of care. So I would use that in order to drag along their skin, press the unsharpened edge up against the neck, press the sharpened edge up against the neck, use the tip to dab along the chest or thighs, and use the tip to scratch as well.
Sounds very exciting.
It's fun.
Does your partner ever giggle?
I've had people in the past do that.
Sometimes when I get nervous, I laugh. Like if I'm doing a really hard workout and my abs are like killing me and they're making you do 1,000 sit-ups, I start cracking up and people are like think it's because I think it's easy or something. I'm like, no, it's so funny because it hurts so bad. So I was just curious.
Yeah, I've had people laugh in the past. Usually I'm able to, depending on the scene, like intimidate them into stopping or hurt them in a way in which makes them
makes them realize you're serious enough.
Yeah.
And then you have sex with them?
Sometimes not. Sometimes the knife play is just the point of the whole thing. Sometimes it's a foreplay activity.
The girl that you live with, is she submissive to you?
She is submissive. Her and I had a DS relationship in the past that didn't work out completely, and so her and I backed off that aspect of our relationship.
Oh, are you sad? Because now you don't have a submissive where you live.
I wouldn't say I'm sad. It's something that I appreciate when I have.
Okay. So it's not something that you terribly need to be dominant to get off or to enjoy, but you just like having that.
Yeah, and the dom sub stuff tends to be mostly out of the bedroom. It's definitely something that tinges how I interact sexually with my partners, but it's much more for me about the life that we live and the life that we choose to make for ourselves that really makes a big difference to me.
So if your live-in girlfriend is submissive, but you guys don't live a DS lifestyle together, but they are naturally submissive and you're naturally dominant, does it come up in bed where you react to each other slightly in that way, or you just don't really do it at all because it crosses out the bedroom too easily for you guys?
It's not really a concern of it going outside of the bedroom. I'm trying to think of a good way to describe.
Because do you get to do knife play and stuff with her?
Yeah. So one thing to note is that there is a difference between being a top and a dominant.
Okay.
And a bottom and a submissive. Those are separate things, and usually you see them together. Tops are more often than not dominant and bottoms are more often than not submissive. But I'm also a top, and so I tend to be the one doing things if there's some sort of play involved in a relationship. But my partner, who is also dominant, she has a more black and white view of topping and bottoming, and found it really surprising that I enjoyed being ridden while having sex and those sorts of things. I'm like, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah,
as a
you just get
dominant,
to lie there. Of course you want to.
yeah. If I'm a dominant, I tell a person who's submissive to me to, have sex with me by riding me, and that's still me being a dom. I'm just not the one doing the action. I'm a strong believer in the fact that a good example is that a blowjob can be a dominant act or a submissive act. And it all depends on how it is in your head. And that can be different. You can be receiving a blowjob and feeling like you're the one in charge of the circumstance. And the bottom, or the person giving the blowjob, can feel like they're the one in control of the circumstance and they can feel like a top. And there's nothing wrong with that. And not all things are divided cleanly along top and bottom lines or dominant and submissive lines.
Yeah, I'm learning that as this show goes along. There's like 100 different ways of looking at everything. But usually the main thing is just talking about it before it happens, and then it's not confusing and every situation can be different.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a ton of stuff. You also earlier mentioned fire play.
Yes.
How does that look like for you sexually?
So for me, fire play isn't often a sexual act. It's something that I enjoy.
Then I don't care.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Well, it is a thing that I enjoy
it up.
and like can be something sexual. If it is sexual, it tends to be me lighting small bits of fuel on intimate areas or trying to derive fear from someone who I know that gets a sexual response out of. Because a lot like knife play, fire play can be used for a sensory element. It can be used for fear, or it can be used as a pain implement. So it really depends on how you're using it, how long you let the fuel stay lit, how often are you hitting a particular spot, how sensitive is the area that you're going over.
So you've mentioned fear a couple of times here. You like people to be scared of you. It's like a thing you really like.
In certain circumstances, yeah. I think the answer with a lot of questions to me is it depends. Because it depends on the person and how they're responding. My partner, who's the dominant, she really, I can tell, really doesn't enjoy being scared. And so her being scared isn't a really big turn on for me because I know and I can tell based on her body language and the way in which her body responds that it's a unsexy thing for her. But a lot of my partners in the past, fear has been something that really gets them going, gets their heart rate and endorphins pumping.
So I find this tricky because the one time that I tried to have a relationship with the dom, his thing was to be degrading and he was very mean and I was supposed to do things I didn't want to do to make him happy. Mm-hmm. And then the next time I kind of dated someone that like kind of apparently, I'd known him for a while, but I didn't know that he kind of liked being dominant sexually. He was like, yeah, but I only want to do things that you like. But then that was so confusing for me because I was like, what do you mean? You want to do these things, but like I'm supposed to like them. But then is that being submissive?
I think compliance and submission are a little blind to whether the submissive wants to do them or not. And it's all about the individual relationship dynamic as to whether that is a submissive act or it is not a submissive act. So carefully like negotiating a relationship so that you're doing the things that feel rewarding or things that at the very least you're happy to do for your partner is really going to depend on where that line is. So
you are also the head of a BDSM style organization or like a club or a group?
Yeah, we call ourselves a group. We're based in the Mid-Atlantic in a smaller city that's not too small. And we have at least over 700 members.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I think a lot more people have participated with us than those, but that's just the amount of people that participate online that we can easily track.
And last week I was going to have a meeting with you, but you were busy because you were doing like a meeting. What kind of stuff do y'all meet about?
So we have multiple types of meetings. The meeting that we were doing last week is a open forum educational event. So we all hang out at a local BDSM bar and people, if they want to, grab a drink, and we have a basic topic idea. And from there, people ask questions and we expand on the topic at hand. And we do that in a way that is less about me and the other leaders providing all the answers and much more about getting lots of opinions and pieces of information from lots of different people. An example would be that we were talking about, I think it was negotiation, and somebody had a specific circumstance with a partner that they were having problems with. And a lot of the people in the group were like, that sounds like really bad behavior and a red flag and a sign that you should probably like pull the ripcord and get out of that relationship, or at least de-escalate until you can figure out why they're behaving this way, because that's not really the way in which I would want to be treated. And so, you may not want to be treated that way.
Was that a dominant having the issue or a submissive having an issue?
It was more of a relationship problem and less of a dom-sub problem, so they didn't really talk about that. And not everybody in the BDSM community or even that come out to our group are dominant or submissive, because BDSM incorporates a lot of things other than just dominance and submission. My definition of BDSM is bondage, domination, and submission, sadomasochism. So you have...
And what is there one more in there? Discipline?
Yeah, some people use D as the discipline as well. Discipline and submission. You'll see multiple variations on that. For me, domination and submission covers more ground than just discipline, because I don't consider what I do 99% of the time to be discipline. And because I am more of a caretaker dominant than a strict, like, oh, you did something wrong, and so I'm going to punish you. It gets in the whole idea of like whether something is actual punishment or what we call punishment. I much prefer dominance and submission than discipline being one of the foundational elements. And historically, that's not the way in which BDSM was interpreted, but I feel like that's a better encompassment of the BDSM community in general.
Wait, is punishment and punishment the same, or is punishment more fun?
I feel like punishment is the opposite of punishment.
Right, but if your sub is enjoying the punishment actually, but it is scary, that still should be kind of fun.
Well, the way in which to actually punish someone is to find out what they actually dislike. And as an example, one of my partners really didn't like my taser. And so...
Your taser?
Yeah.
Back up. Okay. So you just happen to have a taser around when you need it?
Oh, it's part of my toy bag. I have a taser in my toy bag. I don't bring it with me anywhere. It stays in my house in my toy box.
Okay. And when do you... I'm sorry, I was just really thrown off by your taser. When do you use it? Is this part of your fear play that you use?
It has been. It's also...
Do you ever tase yourself?
I have tased myself so many times because in order to, like, tasers are really scary. They sound really, really terrifying. Yeah. And that's part of the reason why I use them.
Wait, the actual sound of them? Or
Yeah. The sound of a taser going off is terrifying in my experience to almost everybody I've met. And so I really appreciated the fear that induced in people, but the problem with it is it means that almost nobody wants to be tased. And so I have to be like, if you see me tase myself, would you let me tase you? And so that's meant that I've had to tase myself a bunch of times.
Where do you tase yourself and where do you tase other people on their body?
I've tased myself on my thigh because I know it won't cause me to lock up and like, continue to press the button or anything, and then I can let go. But I've tased other people on their butt or their thigh. You want to aim for major muscle groups away from the heart.
Is this called electric play?
That's one aspect of electroplay, yeah.
Do you have your box of toys nearby, or your bag of toys?
It's across the room for me. But yeah.
I'd kind of like you to just get it out and pull a toy out one at a time and just say what things are coming out of there.
I mean, I can tell you without going into it what's in there.
Yeah, but it'd be fun to imagine it but okay.
Well, we can go into the imagination of them. We can go into
Okay.
the realm of the mind.
Okay.
So I'm pulling out my box.
Okay.
Right on top, we have my rubber gloves.
Whoa. Are they
Yeah,
like yellow rubber gloves from the kitchen or like blue rubber gloves?
They're nitrile medical gloves, but they're black because I find them much more intimidating.
Okay.
And those are used for playing with people I'm not necessarily wanting to be intimate with in a way, or like if I'm worried about any sort of risk of transmission of STIs because someone has been tested or something along those lines. If I'm doing a demo at a event, like a BDSM event, then I might bring my gloves with me to make sure that I at least have those. And it's important to have nitrile or latex gloves. I prefer nitrile in case somebody is allergic to latex.
Okay. So they're always safely at the top of your box.
Yep.
Okay.
I have a thick
You had me at thick.
rubber.
Sorry, start again. Thick what?
Thick rubber flogger. I have a rope flogger.
So those you hit people with.
Yes.
Which one hurts more?
The thick rubber one mostly, because the way in which I've built it, it can kind of line up all the straps in a line, and it hits like a baseball bat sometimes.
So you created this flogger?
Yeah, I made it from scrap rubber from somebody's craft project like 8 years ago. It's been a while.
Okay, but you built it strong.
Yeah.
American made.
Yes. I have a set of hemp rope for bondage.
Okay. So when you tie somebody, you just like tie their hands together, you tie their feet together.
Yeah, and I've got straps on my bed in order to allow me to like tie someone down.
Oh, like those things that go underneath your bed?
I've built my own version of
course you
that. Like it kind of, it's a very unassuming cloth strap that looks decorative, but is actually a piece of climbing gear that is, thousands of pounds. Like my bed will break before that string does, because my bed was made from IKEA.
Yes. Keith, can I say something?
Yes.
You're starting to sound more and more like a serial killer. In the best way.
The difference is that I only work on consent.
Right. I know, but it's just because like you're so nice sounding and you like kitchen tableness and you're nurturing, and then you throw this fear in there that totally unexpected, and tasers and these decorative things that are actually built to kill. It just sounds like you're very sneaky. Like probably if I met you in real life, I would have no idea that you were dominant.
I mean, my parents don't know about the BDSM, but my parents do know about me being poly. And their response was, well, we've always known that you've been a little weird. And so
I want to talk about all this, but I feel like we should continue to go through your box of toys. So I'm going to come back to your parents.
Okay. So I have a wooden paddle.
Okay. For spankings?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a small E-stim machine.
A what?
E-stim. It's like they're usually used in physical therapy to contract your muscles.
Okay.
And that can be used like a billion different ways. What else do I have?
Is it like a pincher? What is it?
No. They're little electrode pads and a battery-operated device that contracts your muscles.
Oh. Like almost if you had to get like your heart jumped, but like for smaller things?
No, different. It's a different type of current than what you would experience if you were to try to normalize a heart rhythm.
Okay, so this is in your electric play area of the box.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I have my fire play gear, a couple of torches, some...
This is a big box.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of this stuff is actually kind of small.
All right. No, I'm still listening. I want to hear it all.
And that's about it.
What about like the extra vibrators and dildos and things? Do you not use anything like that?
Well, my partners, being female-bodied, are the ones that own their own vibrators, and so I use their vibrators when wanting to use one, because also, cleanliness and fluid bonding are something that we do intentionally.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to use a toy on someone that would have a high risk of fluid transfer or disease transferal.
I always wonder about that. Like,
there's a spectrum. And some people, I'll give you an example for knife play. There's some people who will only use one knife with one person. And there's some people who just kind of half-assedly like wipe off their blades in between playing with people. And for me, I overtly tell my partners that I use 90% isopropyl alcohol in order to clean my toys, and that it's not 100% effective to stop all disease transferal. But I do my best to try to keep my toys clean and dry and in good working order.
Do you put the sharp part of the knife inside a girl?
No.
Okay.
But if I'm in a intense scene, I'm easily going to like scratch their skin. And for the BDSM community, that's a fluid transfer.
Okay. Gotcha.
Because there is like material being transferred onto your blade.
I feel like it sounds safer than getting your nails done at a lot of these janky places that do your nails.
Possibly. I know nothing about professional nail care.
Well, because you put your feet in the same thing that everyone else's feet has been, and they like change the water, but it might not be that clean. And then they don't always like clean all like the clippers, and people can get like all sorts of weird situations from getting their nails done. So that's why a lot of people pay to go to really nice places, because they like don't use the same things, or they clean them through these special
like an autoclave things. Kind of like a piercer.
Yeah.
I know some like people in the BDSM community that use autoclaves and will only use like steel glass toys, or full latex toys are almost completely like a well-made 100% latex toy is more often than not able to be tossed in a dishwasher and cleaned at high heat. So
people just throw their sex toys in the dishwasher?
Yep. Or they'll like boil water and boil their toys.
Okay. You said that your parents understood you being poly because they said you've always been a little weird.
Yes.
What do you think they meant, like, from you growing up that they were kind of talking about? Like, oh, that Keith, he's a little lover.
I mean, I've always had strange relationships, and I was like a goth kid growing up and always liked music that they found strange, and I've always kind of forged my own way in life. And so I think that's mostly what they were referencing.
Okay. Are they supportive of your poly relationships?
Yeah, they have met all of my partners, and they've never said a cross word about anything regarding polyamory.
That's really nice.
There was a transition time where I think that they were convinced that it was going to be a phase, and that eventually I would no longer be seeking out multiple relationships, or I wasn't having serious relationships. But once I think they saw that I was having relationships that spanned, more than 3 years, they realized it's something that I'm spending a lot of time on and I have a lot of commitment to. Right.
What's the largest amount of partners you've had at one time?
I think 4.
When was that?
I've had 4 partners a few different times.
Okay. So say you have one girlfriend, not you, but in general, a person in the U.S. has one girlfriend, and they've been together a while. Sometimes you're getting laid only like once or twice a week, right? Like once a week, once every 2 weeks, sometimes if your relationship isn't going that great. But say you have 3 or 4 relationships and you're only getting laid like once a week or once every other week by one partner, you're still getting laid like 4 times a week. Like, what if all your relationships are going good? Like, how much sex can you really have? Do you get tired?
I mean, I've been in relationships in the past where I've had sex every day. Right now I'm in a spot where, I'm not having nearly that much sex. Like, I'm having sex once every week, once every other week. And I'm happy with it. One of my partners in particular, I think, is struggling with that, but it's It's something that we're working on, and it has to do with partly my health and their health and our relationship. So it's something that we're working on.
Is your health okay? What do you mean?
I have a few conditions that are going to be with me for my entire life that I don't really want to like go into detail about, but like do cause difficulties for me.
Okay.
Part of them are like physical ailments. Part of them are mental health issues.
Okay.
That I've just always lived with, and that aren't a huge deal because I've learned how to manage them, but are consequential to my life.
Okay. And they can affect your like sex drive and feelings?
Yeah, especially mental health medication tends to tank libidos. So.
Okay, let's talk about more fun stuff. When we talk about you liking to hurt people, what does it make you feel when you hurt people?
I think what I've learned is that it's less about what I like, because there is a small element of like getting an adrenaline rush from doing something taboo. But a lot of times I'm responding to my partner's responses, and me having control over that really works for me, and something that I tend to really enjoy.
So the fear and the pain that you put on people gives you like a rush?
Yeah, it gives me a rush. And when I hear them, gasp or, moan in pain, like that makes me happy.
Okay, so it truly is you having the control and the trust of somebody else to let you hurt them, and that they'll let you do that and
Yeah,
they
I mean,
trust you.
it's just like giving someone oral sex. If you're giving someone oral sex and they're like really into it, it can be a really big turn on. And the same thing goes for like spanking someone.
Is there some sort of bucket list sexual scenario that you haven't gotten to do yet that you really, really, really think that you would really like to do?
I have this ongoing thing where I haven't had a threesome that I felt like was fulfilling and really matched my criteria of threesome.
Threesome criteria? Let me hear the criteria.
So I haven't had a threesome where I was like having penetrative sex with both of the people that were involved. I've had lots of like fun time in group sex scenarios with varying numbers of people, but I really haven't had penetrative sex.
But you only got to put
before.
like your dick in one of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been like my biggest fantasy since I was really, really young. And in spite of dating lots of people who were also dating my other partners, it just really never worked and has never really fit in the way in which I would like it to. Hopefully that happens before I like step outside of my house and get hit by a bus. But we'll see.
So, but the two women that you're dating right now that live local to you are also dating each other.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be comfortable for you to suggest that the three of you could be together at the same time?
It's something that we've talked about, and I think we're largely interested in. There are several relationship dynamics that make that a bad option right now. And
can you let me know what relationship dynamics that make that bad would be?
It's complicated and goes into like a long history of different things. Some of the implements are stresses on different relationships within those, three separate relationships. I mean, really, there are four separate relationships because there's a relationship between me and one partner, another relationship with that partner and my other partner, and that other partner and me. And then all three of us have a relationship together. It's important we value those over one night of having fun.
Like it could switch up and fuck with the dynamic of the three of you being together if that's something that's like expected or it's kind of always there. It could like mess with your group kitchen table dynamic.
Yeah.
You said you live in a small community, like a smaller city?
Yes, a smallish city. I feel like we're big enough to be important and have a actually really good BDSM community and really good and healthy polyamorous community. I'm really happy. I feel very confident that I am building towards that and helping cultivate a awesome community that people can feel safe and happy in. One of the great things about BDSM is that it's experiential. It doesn't have to be sexual. You can do it just because you enjoy it and not because there's a happy ending or just because it gets your motor running. Some people do it just because it feels right and it makes them happy and not because it makes them feel sexual. I would definitely advise any sort of listeners to participate in your local BDSM community. Go to, if you have multiple groups, go to the different groups and see what they have to offer, because there are always going to be people like you who want to participate in ethical BDSM and ethical non-monogamy to join you and hang out with you and produce an awesome group.
Would they go onto Facebook groups, or they would just Google their community? Where would people find that?
The standard is the BDSM version of Facebook called FetLife. You can sign up for free. It is not a perfect platform, and I would discourage people from using it as a way to meet people or pick up people in order to find sexual partners or BDSM partners. But there are ways for you to be able to connect with your local BDSM community that can be very invaluable. If FetLife doesn't have good options for your area, there is a subreddit for the BDSM community called literally the BDSM community subreddit. So just Google that. It will take you there. And
I can put it in the show notes too. If that's something you want me to have available to people, I can do that.
That would be great. And that can be a good resource in order to maybe find groups or at least be able to talk with like-minded people.
I would like to thank you for talking with me today and for sharing all this really rad stuff that you have built for the community that you're in, as well as offering tools to other people that are listening to help figure out what's right for them. That's super cool, and I'm really happy that we got to talk to you about all this stuff.
Of course. Well, I'm glad that I could help. I hope anybody that is interested in polyamory or BDSM finds resources that help them best.
Yes, and any resources that you think should be in the show notes, I will have in the show notes.
Okay.
So anyone that has questions and wants to go somewhere where they feel like there's a good place, I can have them be in the show notes and also or on my website, InterestingSexPodcast.com.
Okay, excellent. Well, it's great talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, and please keep in touch.
I will do.
Okay, have a good night, Keith. Bye.
I never thought I would say this before, but I'm saying it now. Somebody tase me. So yeah, really lucky to have Keith on today. What a rad dude. Thanks so much, guys, for listening. Do you have interesting sex? Do you want to tell me about your sex? Go to InterestingSexPodcast.com. Let me know what's going on. You can be on the show. We also have a lot of fun gifts there that you can buy. You can check out all the episodes there, whatever you need, whatever you want. We're here for you. Don't forget, we're super lucky to get to have sex with who and how we want. And a lot of people never have that option and have been sold into sex slavery from the moment they are born. So let's do everything that we can to be grateful for what we have, but to help others. 10% of any profit from this show is going to go help stop sex and human trafficking. Thanks again so much for listening. I have so much fun making this for you. I hope you enjoy it. Please subscribe and rate and review and do the things that I need you to do. All my love, Miranda. See you next Tuesday to find out what the pussy drags in. Yeah. Mike Fun. Oh, and thank you to the band 41. I love this song. Thank you for letting me use it. Please check them out at 41music.net. That's the numbers 41music.net.